Is Social Security in trouble? Nearly everything you read talks about how Social Security will be bankrupt in the 2030s and there will be massive cuts to retirement benefits. Because of this, many retirees file as early as possible to get what they can while they can. Well, in this video today, I want to discuss 5 reasons Social Security won't go bankrupt in your lifetime. First, let's discuss the true landscape of the problem with Social Security. Benefits paid out to retirees are funded by tax dollars coming in each and every year. There are 2 aspects to Social Security funding. You have annual taxes and a trust fund from a surplus of past taxes paid in. Right now, we are dipping into that trust fund to pay all scheduled benefits because right now, ongoing taxes won't cover all of those scheduled benefits. So in the mid-2030s, this trust fund is set to run out, and if no changes are made, payroll taxes will only be able to cover about 80% of scheduled benefits. So if you look at your benefit statement, worst case scenario, you are looking at receiving around 80% of the benefits for the foreseeable future. Now, this is certainly not what anyone wants, but it's a far cry from being completely bankrupt. Now, the problem I see too many retirees making is they see a headline like Social Security is broke, and then they make a knee-jerk decision to just file for Social Security as soon as possible, thus receiving a permanent cut in their benefits. They are essentially trading a potential cut for a guarantee of a cut in a way. But let's see what the numbers say. On the screen, I have a 62-year-old male. In the background of this analysis, we're using a reasonable portfolio return, adding in inflation adjustments to Social Security, and then looking at every month he could potentially file to find what would be the optimal strategy in financial terms. If we assume his life expectancy will be 82, which is actually a bit more conservative than the actual life expectancy for a male who is 62, then we see the best strategy would be for John to file at age 68 and 8 months. This would be if there are no cuts to Social Security. His break-even is about 79.5, and you can see a break-even comparison to other strategies in the bottom right-hand corner here. Now, let's say Social Security receives a 20% cut in 2035, as the Social Security trustee report indicates. One would expect the strategy to change significantly. Many would guess filing at 62 is now the best answer. But that's not what the actual data shows at all. With all of the same assumptions outside of the cut in benefits, we see filing at 68 makes the most sense here, just 8 months sooner than before. Now, the break-even does move back basically 2 years, but we will see the optimal strategy only shifts slightly. So the first and most important thing to take away here is that the worst-case scenario isn't as bad as the media will make it out to be. Most filing strategies will shift by months, not years. But even with this, I personally don't believe Social Security will be cut, at least materially. And the main reason for this is that fixing Social Security is much easier than most people think. First off, let's talk about fixing Social Security high level. Theoretically, there are only 2 ways to fix Social Security. You have to affect the inflows or the outflows. Now, inflows are tax dollars, where outflows are benefits paid to retirees. There's potentially a third door here of the government going further into debt and still paying full benefits out, while just not having that funded by tax dollars. Keep in mind, a good portion of the government isn't funded right now. So to me, this seems just as likely as raising taxes or reducing benefits. Not that I agree with this, by the way. But in the trustee report, the actuaries actually give a brute force approach to fixing Social Security, which would be to increase payroll taxes by 3.33%. Now, keep in mind, right now you pay half of payroll taxes and your employer covers the other half. This would fix Social Security effectively into the 22nd century. To put this in context, if you earn the maximum wage base for Social Security, as a worker, this would lead to your taxes going up by approximately $2,800. For the average worker, this increase would result in taxes going up by a little more than $1,000. There are other options here that are less extreme as well, such as a stair-stepping method. For instance, rather than raising payroll taxes immediately across the board, one could raise payroll taxes by 0.5% every 5 years or something less drastic. I'm not saying this is the best solution. I'm just trying to reframe that the fixes aren't as drastic as the media makes it out to be. If we look at less brute force solutions and maybe look at a combination of smaller solutions, the fixes can be a little bit more palatable for all. The Reformer is an interesting tool that you can play around with on the internet to run some solutions yourself. You can reduce benefits by smaller percentages and raise taxes by smaller percentages. You can adjust certain rules like pushing back full retirement age, or maybe even adjusting the inflation measurement for adjusting Social Security benefits on an annual basis. The interesting part of this calculator is seeing the impact of certain ideas. Again, this is not my proposal, but here's a solution that spreads out the impact a bit wider. 1983 was the last time any adjustment was made to full retirement age. Since then, life expectancy has risen about 5 years. So pushing back full retirement age by 1 year is an option. They could start also applying Social Security tax to cafeteria plans, like insurance benefits from your employer, as well as HSA and FSAs. They could create another bend point in the formula and tax higher levels of income. This would also raise the maximum Social Security benefit one could earn, albeit at a slower rate based on the taxes that you pay in. They could also diversify the trust fund beyond just treasuries, maybe into stocks even. Combining these more minor changes would lead to solvency out to 27.7 and a much smaller cut at that point. My point here is not to make a case for any one adjustment. Most people will want to see an adjustment that benefits them while passing the costs on to someone else. My point here is that there is a wide range of solutions that fix Social Security. But here's one of the biggest reasons I don't think we'll see big cuts to Social Security. Too many people rely on it for too much of their income. 1 in 5 Americans collect some benefit from Social Security. 40% of retirees rely on Social Security for a meaningful portion of their income. Cutting Social Security would disproportionately affect women as they make up the lion's share of widows. And whether you agree with the premise behind Social Security or not, it would be incredibly difficult to unravel it as it lifts many Americans out of poverty. Cut Social Security massively and there are just a shifting of problems where costs are incurred to support the impoverished somewhere else. Well, let's go further and discuss reason number 4. In most surveys that I've seen, voters want Social Security to still be around in decades to come. Even if you oppose the idea of the government being part of your retirement, if you're 60 years old and you've paid in taxes for your entire life, well, damn it, I'm sure you want your benefits back. If most voters want Social Security to be fixed, it's likely that Social Security will be fixed at some point in the future. Let's say younger generations are more in favor of cutting Social Security and older generations want their benefits paid in full. Well, the biggest blocks of voters are the older generations. Not only that, but those with less are more reliant on Social Security for their retirement. Well, those with less wealth outnumber those with more wealth. So again, the voter demographics are in favor of Social Security being around. And I think the biggest reason Social Security hasn't been fixed is it's a massive talking point and the problems are, well, about a decade away. If you're a politician, why give up such an important issue that you can use to your advantage to get more votes? There's also a hidden incentive to not fix problems anytime soon. As I showed in the break-even analysis earlier, filing at 62 is a suboptimal decision for most if we just focus purely on the numbers. Fears around Social Security cuts pushes a meaningful amount of people to file as early as possible. Well, people making suboptimal financial decisions relieves financial stress on the system, so there could be an incentive reason to wait to fix Social Security here as well. Finally, I want to focus on another fear that I hear quite often from retirees, and that fear is around means testing for those with more wealth. First off, if you go into the Reformer tool and you choose means testing as a solution to fix Social Security, the trust fund runs out only a year later and the cut in benefits is 17% rather than 21%. So it's a small difference at best. Further, it's important to analyze what means testing means. Most people equate means testing to looking at the value of your assets. If you have $5 million, well, certainly they would cut your benefits, right? Well, wrong. It's nearly impossible to means test based on assets. The government doesn't have access to that data. There are illiquid investments that are sometimes impossible to value. It's just a very difficult task. Instead, they test based on income. The good news is income is something that you can control quite easily or strategically, and therefore strategically plan around it. So even if you have significant wealth, I wouldn't worry too much. The government already means tests you in certain ways, and with the clients at least that we work with, we can do a lot of planning to avoid all of this means testing. Consider Medicare increases. There are ways we can keep your income low through strategic tax planning to avoid means testing on Medicare expenses. Same thing with Affordable Care Act insurance. You can have a multi-million-dollar portfolio and pay next to nothing for health insurance. And so, big picture, I have very few fears of Social Security being cut in any meaningful way. If this is a big fear for you, it's quite easy to stress test a cut inside of your plan. If your optimal strategy barely changes and your retirement plan is still strong, then certainly vote for the fixes that you think are best for fixing Social Security. But beyond that, don't let it ruin your peace of mind. Yes, changes are likely in some form or fashion, but it's very likely that you will receive every dollar of benefits that you are owed. If you're wanting to learn more about retirement and getting the most out of your wealth, click here to learn about 7 realizations most retirees have in the first few years of their retirement. Click here to learn more, and always remember, you don't need more money, you need a better plan. Look forward to seeing you in the next video.